Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bat, and tonight I'll be talking about Dawn of the Dead. More specifically, I'll be talking about the 2004 remake. I guess you could call it Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead '04, or just the Dawn of the Dead remake if you want, whatever floats your boat. This is an action horror movie, and of course is a remake of the 1978 George Romero film. But both of these couldn't be any different. Like they're the same pretty much in name and basic plot only. Basic plot being zombie apocalypse and a group of survivors just fortify themselves in a mall. But from there on out, like the similarities kind of split. This one again is more of an action movie. The social commentary is totally different. Whereas in the original Dawn of the Dead, the social commentary was more about like consumerism. This one, well, we'll get into it more later. But like, yeah, this movie, I remember it being like, really hyped up when I was a kid. Posters all over Blockbuster, even corner stores that rented out videos, and like bus stops had giant posters for this. I remember one of the teaser trailers was like a white window, like a really blurred white window, and a bunch of red bloody zombie hands just started showing up everywhere. And the trailer was terrifying, and then when I actually saw the movie, it was like really freaky too. I saw it a few years later because I was like a little kid when this came out. But yeah, when it finally got my chance to see it, it was fucking crazy. And I actually think I saw the original and the remake back to back, and they're both movies that I love. But I think in recent years, I've grown more attached to the 2004 remake. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's better, but I definitely say it's a scarier zombie movie, and it's got more of an adrenaline rush. The original is a classic, but I guess after seeing it 40, maybe 50 times my whole life, and like every fucking version you could possibly find, instead of just being completely starstruck by it and not seeing any faults, I think because I've seen it so many times, I'm starting to see some of the cracks in it. But not to take away from that, it's still a great movie, but I'm sure I'm going to say some shit that will piss some people off. But this movie, it was one of the I wouldn't say the first, but this was one of the movies that popularized running zombies. And then Walking Dead brought it back to the walking, shambling zombies. But for a while, running zombies were a really big thing. And a lot of zombie purists, really fucking hate these kind of iterations of zombies. Even going so far as to say the only movie in the 2000s that did it right was Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later, which in and of itself people don't even consider a zombie movie. They just call it like an infection movie. But I don't know, for all intents and purposes, it's a zombie movie. Maybe it's because I don't have that many infection movies to sort it with. But it's a zombie movie, so is this one, and they had runners, and I thought it was both times very fucking terrifying. But those of you who know your shit about zombies will know that one of the first iterations of running zombies wasn't even in the 2000s. It would probably be in 1985 with Return of the Living Dead. So I don't really have a problem with the running zombies or walking zombies. Of course I prefer the classic Romero zombies because it's just so iconic. But running zombies, they're fucking terrifying. Because in all reality, if that was the kind of zombie apocalypse to happen where they were runners, I'd be fucked, man. I'm a heavy smoker. There's no way I'm getting away from them unless I can get up somewhere high. But yeah, man, running zombies, I think 90% of us would be fucked, bro. Like, none of us are really track runners, and you really would have to be to outrun this shit all the time. Because in this one, you'll see that you don't really have a lot of time to get away from them, or even stay away from them. In the original Dawn of the Dead, it's kind of like implied that, the original 4 that land at the mall, they're there for about 6 months, give or take. In this one, I think they're there for about a month or just under a month. So, always got to be on the move. And I think if this apocalypse or 28 Days Later happened, I think most of us would be completely fucking screwed. But yeah, that just adds to the terror, in my opinion, just the inescapableness, like the idea that putting yourself in this position, and a lot of people for some reason can really easily put themselves into a hypothetical with apocalypses, most commonly zombies, but this is one of the unwinnable ones. I think this, 28 Days, and like Return of the Living Dead are 3 that are like pretty fucking scary, just because if you look at the reality of it, they're all unwinnable situations. Return of the Living Dead is probably the scariest one because the zombies can't die in that movie. They just keep reanimating and making more of them. So that's the scariest one, even though that's a comedy. But Dawn of the Dead '04, it just makes me think there's no way I could outrun these. No fucking way, man. And I think most of you guys couldn't either. And it's just fucking crazy. But Anyway, let's get into the plot and all that stuff before I, spin my wheels too much here. Of course, this is a 2004 action horror film directed by Zack Snyder in his feature directorial debut. Zack Snyder's known for his like superhero comic book movies, like 300 and Watchmen. Those are the two decent ones I can think of. In my opinion, I think Dawn of the Dead is his best movie. He also did a spiritual sequel to this called Army of the Dead. I don't really remember it being too tied to this. I just remember not liking it very much. It was like a shitty Netflix movie, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. There's a screenplay. This movie, Dawn of the Dead '04, more specifically, has a screenplay by James Gunn, another guy known for his comic book movies. But those of you who are a subscriber to the channel most definitely will know this, but those of you who are just new to the channel or don't know much about horror probably don't know this. James Gunn was a pretty big horror guy back in the day. He actually used to work for Troma. His first movie was Tromeo and Juliet. And then he still carried over into horror. His most recent one that I can think of is like Brightburn. But then he also did like the Belko Experiment. And then he also even did Slither, which funny enough is another zombie kind of remake. That of course being a semi-remake to Night of the Creeps. Another great zombie movie, by the way. Check it out. Fucking, if you like Slither, check out Night of the Creeps. If you like zombie movies, check that out. But yeah, that's another classic I got to cover at some point. Of course, based on Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 original by George A. Romero. Produced by Richard P. Rubinstein, who I think also produced the original. He had something to do with the original one, so that's pretty cool. Mark Abraham, Eric Newman, and Thomas A. Bliss. Starring Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, Jake Weber, and Mekhi Phifer, just to name a few. Cinematography by Matthew F. Leonetti, edited by Niven Howie, music by Tyler Bates, and I believe his first soundtrack and its first horror soundtrack or score. Production companies Universal Pictures and Strike Entertainment, also New Amsterdam Entertainment, distributed by Universal Pictures in the United States, Metropolitan Film Export in France, and Toho Tawa in Japan. Released on March 19, 2004 with a running time of 100 minutes or 110 minutes if you watch the unrated director's cut, which, word to the wise, I recommend you do, with specifically, horror movies, raunchy comedies, or hardcore action movies. Always get the unrated cut because, you're getting the whole movie there, and what you actually pay to see is in the unrated cut. Rated cuts for comedy, horror, and shit like that usually are terrible. Just go on Netflix and watch any of the Judd Apatow movies. They are all the rated cut, and they are significantly worse than the unrateds. But anyway, released in the United States, France, and Japan. Of course, language is English, and a budget of $26 million with a box office return of $102.3 million. So yeah, this movie cleaned house. This was a blockbuster. People loved this movie. People still do love this movie. Maybe they have a little bit of remake fatigue or zombie fatigue. I remember zombie fatigue like a motherfucker. Shit was everywhere because it was in comics, video games, tabletop games, movies, TV shows. I personally got zombie fatigue with The Walking Dead. The comic was decent, but the show just is like fucking retarded in my opinion. But yeah, zombie fatigue kicked in, and even now remake fatigue. I think in the early 2000s that was a big thing too, but I think we're seeing with a lot of these legacy sequels that are coming out lately, 2000s weren't so bad. We had some pretty decent remakes. Of course, a lot of them never really outshined the original movies they were remaking, but in some instances they came close. Like for me, this was always up there with, Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and to a extent the beginning prequel, House of Wax, The Hitcher, shit like that. There was like some really good fucking, remakes of slasher movies and, horror movies in the early 2000s that I think we kind of took for granted. Of course, we had some shit, but, there were some really good ones. I think the legacy sequels, though, that's a whole different kind of breed of bad. And this movie was definitely one that aged really well. Again, I was talking earlier about social commentary. I think in this one, it's a lot more subtle, and it kind of aged a lot better. It sounds really fucked because the state of the world we're living in right now, I think the social commentary in this one kind of just aged a lot better. Whereas in the original movie, the social commentary is pretty much consumerism bad, which I get it. It makes sense. It is relevant today with, the COVID shit going on. You saw how everyone was just running to the malls like a fucking retarded lunatic, or like, the people today that like have houses literally made out of Funko Pops, or like that guy who fucking got a divorce and his wife got all his Funko Pops. It's like consumerism is still just a very gross issue in this country, but it's just always ironic to me to have like an artist, someone who, or an entertainer, an artist, someone who's inevitably making money off the working class person, spend their time preaching to you about how this thing you spend your free time with is inherently bad and how consumerism and buying shit's bad. Meanwhile, they're making money off you buying their product. It's ironic as fuck to me. And, in my opinion, and this is not really a knock on Dawn of the Dead, this is more on, I guess, Romero's capability to do social commentary. And again, I don't mean any disrespect. The guy did create the zombie genre as we know it today. I just think his social commentary is a little hit and miss. And what I mean by that is if you look at the Dead series, for example, right? Like Night of the Living Dead, fucking great. Dawn of the Dead, it is a great movie, but I think it's kind of also because Dawn of the Dead, the original, is a bit of more of a comedic tone. The social commentary comes off as a little bit more ham-fisted and hokey. Day of the Dead is a fucking great movie. The commentary about the military-industrial complex is terrifying. And then you get Land of the Dead, which I don't even remember. I think that's again, Bush, consumerism, like bad type shit. And Land of the Dead is horrible. And then, you get Diary of the Dead, which is more about I think that one kind of predated a lot of shit because that's about like social media. So that one's pretty decent. And then Survival of the Dead, which I can't even remember what that one was about. I just remember it being horrible. But again, my point being, Romero has got inconsistency with his social commentary. The guy is a great filmmaker, but when it comes to writing, I don't think he's the best in the world. And it kind of just shows with how his movies play out. So when you're watching the original Dawn of the Dead, I feel like it's kind of just, it's a little frustrating just having it constantly, brought back into your face. Like, hey, we're the real zombies coming to the mall. We gotta go. Like, it's just like, and it happens like so frequently that I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, you guys are fucked. You're staying in the mall. You should have just restocked and left, But in this movie, like the 2004 Snyder remake, I feel like the social commentary or like the thing it's referencing in the real world is like post 9/11 paranoia in North America, and that's something we're still living with today. With how fucked the world is all around the globe, people are scared shitless. People are always panicking, waiting for the next invasion. In the early 2000s, it was biological weapons and terrorist attacks, and I think still to this day it's kind of like that, but with mass shootings and shit and assassinations. But for that reason, I feel like this movie is a lot more terrifying, and the social commentary is a lot more poignant, or it aged better, whatever you want to say. It sticks better, and it's not constantly in your face. You don't have people constantly saying, oh, like terrorists, or like them and shit. It's like you don't have to say it because the paranoia is in the air, for lack of a better term. And you really see this in the beginning of the movie when you get with the hyper flash footage of riots and like the war in the Middle East interspliced with zombies attacking and shit. Like it resonated, I think, with me back then, and it still resonates with people to this day. It's just the fear of just being overrun in the end times, which is another interesting thing about this movie. They never dive too deep into what caused this. I mean, some people theorize, and I think the DVD cover kind of hints at it being a virus, but there's a heavy religious subplot or theme that kind of shows up in this movie. Like there's a lot of allusions to religion and Judgment Day. I mean, they kind of mention it in the original movie, like when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth, and mention voodoo and shit. Whereas in this one, it's almost like it's very much leaning into the Catholic Judgment Day, Book of Revelations, and kind of toying with the idea maybe it isn't a virus, maybe it's God punishing people, maybe it's the devil. And I think that's really cool too, because it's never clearly stated. Some zombie movies will say what it is. Even Night of the Living Dead kind of left it ambiguous, but I think it's pretty cool because, especially tying into the paranoia thing, because when, the 9/11 shit was going on, people got really religious. People did think it was Judgment Day. I think it all ties together really well, and I think for that reason, the social commentary and, by extension, this movie is kind of better. I wouldn't say Dawn of the Dead 78 is a shit movie. I think it's a classic zombie movie. It's got some great kills, makeup effects. It's got a great story. It's got a great cast, a lot of memorable actors and shit. It is one of George's best fucking movies. But I just think that, for because you got to keep in mind the original Dawn of the Dead, depending on what cut you're watching, it's a 2 hour and a bit movie, maybe even a bit longer. And it's just, I don't know, after seeing it again for so many times, like maybe 40, 50 times in my life, it's kind of exhausting just getting, preached at, like the social commentary. I think the best social commentary doesn't have to be outright stated. You can kind of just subconsciously pick up on it. Like a Night of the Living Dead, you can kind of subconsciously pick up on it. It's never clearly stated that those guys in the woods shooting zombies are fucking racist rednecks. It's just, it's a subconscious image. And then the fact that they accidentally, quote, I'm finger quoting here, but accidentally shoot Ben, it all ties it together. They never, look to the camera and be like, and shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Dawn of the Dead is just too on the nose. And also, I think the original one has too many comedic elements, which they did try to fix with the Italian cut, just called Zombie by Dario Argento. But again, that one has its own problems with pacing. I think the soundtrack kind of fucks it up by being too much of a product of its time. Some great moments of tension are taken away by like the Goblin soundtrack, because in my opinion it sounds like the same 3 songs are being used on repeat, that whole cut. It's a more streamlined, more serious cut, but I think the soundtrack fucks it up. A lot of things, I'll keep going back to the original, but this is relevant to the new one because they were going to put, sound clips of the original movie into the new one, and I'm glad that they didn't, because I feel like it would have cheapened it. Like, case in point, watch Shaun of the Dead from 2003. That movie, it's intentionally a comedy movie, but they use music from Dawn of the Dead. And I remember seeing Shaun of the Dead before I saw the original Dawn of the Dead. So, once I put 2 and 2 together and realized the music was the same, I was like, oh shit, that's the music in Shaun of the Dead. And it fits better in that one because it's a comedy and it's more bubbly and shit. But I don't know, that's my gripe with it. I think the remake is genuinely a terrifying movie. I think it holds up. I think the running zombies are fucking great. I think this is one of the few movies that did it right. I know I couldn't get a really consistent, base poll on this or anything, but like I've heard people say Romero really didn't like this movie because of the running zombies, the more focus on action and shit. He said it's more like a video game, but then I've heard other people say he really did like it. It's just the running zombies and micro thing, like little things like that, he didn't appreciate as much. I can't speak for him, and I don't know 100%. I'd like to think that he did like the movie. It's like, but here's the thing too, like, if he wanted a remake that was exactly like his movie, why would you want a remake that's exactly like your movie? I think the best remakes are the ones where you can watch the original and you can watch the new one back to back and get 2 different experiences out of the same thing, or 2 levels of enjoyment out of the same thing. And this is one of the ones where I feel like you can do that. The Hitcher is like another one where you could do that, or like The Ring. Like, this was one of the ones where it had the same premise, but it did it completely differently, and I think it did it for the better. So I hope Romero wasn't too hard on this movie. Although I do think this was Zack Snyder's best movie, because Army of the Dead was, from what I remember, a fucking shit show. But essentially how this movie plays out, one of our main characters is Sarah Polley. She's this nurse named Anna, and she basically returns from her long shift and then to come home to her suburban house. Next morning, she wakes up, her husband's killed, the fucking zombie apocalypse has started, the whole fucking suburb's getting demolished, and actually the world around her is falling. She basically gets into her car, crashes the car, wakes up, and she's met by Ving Rhames, who's this like police officer guy. And then the 2 of them start going on their way, trying to find their way out of this fucking urban deathscape. Then they find Mekhi Phifer and Jake Weber, and Mekhi Phifer's wife, who's heavily pregnant. I think it's kind of like a nod to Galen Ross, who played Francine in the original Dawn of the Dead. However, this plays out completely different than her pregnancy, and it's pretty wild. Excuse me. Eventually, our survivors go into the mall. And once they go into the mall, they, classic Dawn of the Dead shit, they barricade themselves inside, hoping that they can, replenish on, food and stuff, and just be safe for a bit before and figure out what the fuck's actually going on. Of course, the security guards come down. They take all of our fucking heroes or our survivors' weapons, and they basically lock them in one of the department stores to make sure they're not going to loot the place. Tensions are high between everybody. Nobody knows what's going on. You get a lot of really cool news reports, some cameos from Tom Savini, Kem Foray, and what's Buddy's name? The guy who played fucking Roger, Scott Reininger. I hope I said that right. But yeah, they all play, cameos, original cast members. Really cool to see. But the news reports in this movie were really sick. And again, added to that post 9/11 tension. I remember the thing that always gets me when I watch that movie that kind of sends a chill up my spine is when CJ's watching the TV, and this is a couple days into them being at the mall, and the guy's like, I've just been informed we're going off the air. And Essentially, like, if you ever hear that on TV, shit's fucked. Like, everything is fucked. You get a clear indication of that in the opening credits when you see all the news reporters getting torn apart and the world crumbling. But the second they're in the mall and they're safe, or they think they're safe, and the news just goes completely dead, that's how you know everything fell, and they're in for it. They're fucking screwed. And eventually people start easing up, tensions begin to loosen up. They're trying to get more concerned to get a helicopter to get them so they can go to this place called Fort Pastor. Ving Rhames is trying to get out there so he can hopefully see his brother. Later we find out Fort Pastor's overrun, everyone's fucked up. We find this out by a truck who shows up to the mall filled with survivors and this one fucking fat bitch who's clearly infected. Everyone situates in the mall and shit. They start kind of enjoying luxuries. I remember there's a part where Anna and fucking I can't remember, Jake Weber's guy, they're fucking clearly cozying up, even though fucking Anna's husband just died at the beginning of the movie. She starts hitting it off with fucking Jake Weber. They're watching Animal House and shit like that. The guy from fucking Modern Family or Arrested Development or whatever the fuck that stupid show is, I just know him as the douche from that show. And I remember one time when we were kids watching this movie and it was at a party and I put it on just to gross a bunch of people out. I remember this one girl, she just looks up, she's like, that's the guy from Family Improvement, and then he fucking gore all across the wall and he gets destroyed. But he plays a prick just like in the show. He's a prick in the movie, but the thing they need him for is he's got a key for a boat, which essentially what happens is they stay comfortable in the mall for a bit, but it's not like the original Dawn of the Dead. In the original one, the four crew, the four people, Flyboy, Peter, Roger, and Fran, they stay in the mall for about 6 months. And you can really tell that it's about 6 months because Fran's pregnancy bump gets clearly way bigger. In this one, I think they're in the mall for about a month or just under. The power gets cut. The zombies are fast. So they got to figure out how to get the fuck out of there. So they soup up these transport buses underneath in the underground parking with barbed wire and snow plows on it and shit. And the idea is they're going to pack everything up that they need. They're going to go across the street to get Andy, who's the guy in the gun shop. And they're going to fucking diggy all the way down to the docks. They're going to use fucking waspy rich prick's fucking boat. And they're going to get to an island somewhere. That's the game plan. Of course, nothing ever goes according to plan. There's this brutal fucking shootout in the sewers. Fucking, again, the action in this movie is crazy. There's some fucking, some people complain that the action takes away from the horror in this movie, but I think it just all adds to the adrenaline. There's some great shit where, CJ's shooting, propane tanks. You get to see all these zombies just fall the fuck over. The part when the vans pull out of the mall and they're swarmed by them is genuinely fucking terrifying when you, take in the actual number of these fucking things. They put chainsaws outside the van to cut them down and shit. It's just fucking brutal. There's a baby zombie. I'm throwing shit all around. The plot's going around, but basically there's a zombie baby. Shit hits the fan. They leave in the transport buses. They try to get to the marina. A couple people, fucking no spoilers, but a couple people obviously don't make it, and then our remaining survivors get on a boat where they hopefully find an island. Now, again, depending on what version you're seeing, I think only on the AMC and MTV version they had the, quote, happy ending where there is no post-credits and we just assume that they got away and they go to an island. On the DVD in the post-credits scene, we get to see the island they go to through, first-person video, camera footage. And they get there and they get fucking obliterated. And it's fucking crazy. So, yeah, technically everyone dies at the end of this movie, which, in my opinion, that's how you end a zombie movie. A lot of them, at least from my memory, tend to end with at least one person surviving, which always gives off some semblance of hope. But to me, the best zombie movies are the ones that leave you feeling hopeless, the ones that make you oh, this is truly an unwinnable fucking situation. And funniest one of all, I think the scariest zombie movie for that, in my opinion, is actually Return of the Living Dead. Because if you take away all the gags and the jokes, those zombies don't die. You can't shoot them in the head to kill them. From my knowledge, you can't kill them. If you do or burn them, they'll turn into smoke and more of them will rise and the chemical acid rain will come down. That's an unwinnable situation. So but in my opinion, it's the fucking scariest one. However, Dawn of the Dead 04 and 28 Days Later are quick runners up because technically, in my opinion, 28 Days Later is very possible. It's about a biological weapon that is stemmed from Ebola if you read the graphic novel. And Dawn of the Dead, I mean, again, it could be a religious apocalypse or a spiritual apocalypse, or it could be a biological weapon or a virus. the fucking apocalypse one, we don't know if that's possible until it happens, but viruses and shit like that, bioweapons, we know those are real, and we don't know what the fuck could be out there, what someone could release, what could happen. It's a very freaky movie, and again, I think just with how fucked up the world is, there's no need for this movie to go overboard with the social commentary. It just sits under the surface, like gets under your skin, and then you're getting all distracted by the running and the action and the adrenaline. But by the end of the movie, you're still thinking about it and like how fucked up it is, because that's what happened with me. I mean, I watched this movie like a week ago, and I'm still thinking about it. And what made me want to do this review is just talk about how fucking awesome it is. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead 2004, it is a fucking action-packed thrill ride. It's a fucking slam. Probably one of my favorite horror remakes. It's definitely one of my favorite remakes. Again, when you rewatch shit like this, you really see that we had it good back in the day. There's a huge difference with what's going on. I think right now we get a lot of prequels and legacy sequels. I miss the raunchy Attitude Era 2000s remakes. They're not all great, but this was an example of one that was fucking awesome and did everything right. The violence was top notch. The action was fast paced. Like, the characters were, to a degree, all of them had their likable moments. Some of them were fucking pieces of shit, but that's what you want in a mixed bag of fucking characters. It just was awesome. It's a really fucking good movie. I highly recommend it. It's also very easy to get a hold of. Like, you can get the director's cut DVD. There's a 4-pack you can get, which I believe also comes with Prince of Darkness and like Serpent in the Rainbow and Land of the Dead. And then of course there's the weird as fuck 2-pack that I never understood, where you could get this Dawn of the Dead remake and then you could get George A. Romero's Land of the Dead. But yeah, this movie, really easy to get a hold of, compared to the original 78, which apparently is impossible to get a hold of now. But yeah, watch both versions. I hope me shitting on some of the social commentary or the comedy of the original Dawn of the Dead didn't affect your opinion about it or deter you from seeing it if you've never seen it. That wasn't what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say was, in terms of scary zombie movies, this one is actually really scary. The original one has like its moments of tension and scares, but I just think it constantly outdoes itself with the comedy, and that's just my opinion. I still love the original Dawn of the Dead, but again, as the older I get, when I want a quick fix of straight adrenaline or horror, this one is usually up on top of the list as one of those movies that like will get me what I'm looking for. The original one's great if you got the time, if you want to watch a long movie, if you like longer horror movies. Fucking, if you want to watch different cuts of a movie, that's the one to go to. It's still a classic, but for my money, I'd say Day of the Dead was probably Romero's best, maybe even Night of the Living Dead. But we'll get more into that another time, because again, I've been on a huge zombie kick since I watched this movie. I mean, I think I watched this, Shaun of the Dead. I watched all 3 versions of Dawn. I watched Night, Day. Like, I've just been on a kick. I've even been, playing Dead Rising, the first one, for like the first time in about 10 years. Hard as fuck game, but honestly, if you ever wanted to play Dawn of the Dead, the video game, go to Dead Rising. That game is hard as fuck because it's a Capcom game, but holy shit, it is so fun. Little side note on that, if you look at the cover of the original Dead Rising, there's a little black box that says this in no way is affiliated with George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead, and that's because, like, actually there was a lawsuit, but there's no fucking, like, you can't fucking sue someone over an idea like zombies in a mall. It's not like an intellectual property that you can just like patent or whatever. So they didn't win the lawsuit, but they had to put that on there to show that it wasn't like a remake or a tie-in or anything. But, funny enough, I think there was a tie-in for the 2004 Dawn of the Dead. It was a mobile game back when those were pretty decent. Like, it was like $2. And I think it was just a horde killing simulator where you just had, like, you could play as Sarah Pauli, Ving Rhames, or like the fucking asshole from like Home and Modern Family, and I think you play as like the security guards, and you just basically went into different sections of the mall and you just killed as many zombies as possible. That was a pretty fun game. I definitely played that a lot in class. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead 2004, fucking classic 2000s horror. Definitely core nostalgia for me, so that's probably what influenced my fucking opinion here. If I were to rate this movie on a scale from 10, 1 to 10, I'd probably have to give it about like a 9.5 or a perfect 10. Definitely influenced by nostalgia and the fact that I grew up with this movie, but at the same time, I've watched this movie for years, ever since at least like, I was like 10, and I've loved this movie ever since. It still holds up, and yeah, it's fucking one of the better zombie movies that came out before all the zombie fucking fatigue. Check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully I'll be back to you guys with another one. Holy fuck, the hash joints are catching up to me. But yeah, we'll see you in the next one.